the actual exam. So sometimes failing the exam, and this is where even Carol Dweck, who wrote the book Mindset, and she talks about having a growth mindset. Just sometimes you might say to yourself, I didn't pass the exam yet. And that word yet is so important, because students don't want to fail so much, and now with social media and everything is so public and you're comparing yourself with other people and you want the top grades, sometimes they have to stand back from that and actually say to themselves, well, I haven't passed maths yet, or I didn't get that B yet. That word is so important.
We're heading to a short break on Late Lunch. If you have someone doing exams today, if you're off from your mocks and you're sitting at home listening to this, stay with us. He's such an interesting guy. Ray Langan's with us on Late Lunch. Ray, prioritising for students. You know, there is so much in all of the courses, in all of the subjects you have to do. It's really the key, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, for any young person out there today, and their mum or dad might be on their case and say, get up to that room and study, or you've got your mock exams coming, or then you have the really super motivated student. A key skill is being able to look at the course, because the big thing, most students think I've got to cover all the course. So I use the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. So what 20% is going to give me 80% of my results? So in other words, what's going to be the key thing that's going to have the biggest effect? Probably the game changer for me was being able to do one-page summaries. And I show students how to do mind maps, or another technique I call grids. In other words, being able to get 60, 70, 50, whatever it is, keywords onto one page that covers the full topic. So for students, they're thinking, I got to cover, that biology book which has 50 chapters in it. Well, if you drill it down and talk to your teacher and actually look at the patterns of what topics have come up in the last couple of years, you may be able to reduce that down to 10, 12, 15 hot topics. So when I was doing the Leaving Cert, I covered 24 topics, but I narrowed that down to 12 hot topics. And they were the ones, I remember my teacher saying, look, the Irish economy hasn't come up for 5 or 6 years. If that comes up, lash out the statistics. So I was all over the Irish economy. Stalin came up last year, but Hitler mightn't have come up for the last 3 years. So, that showed me where to focus. Now, the mocks are a little bit different, because obviously the patterns can be different than the actual exams themselves. The point being is that for a student who is feeling overwhelmed right now, and that's what can happen for a lot of people, they get overwhelmed, is to actually focus maybe on one subject they can do really well. And that could be their favourite subject. So I'll always say to a student, go to your favourite subject. So at the moment I'm coaching a student, and he's focused on French and maths. They're his two favourite subjects. And out of that, he's probably covering 25 topics. And we've created 10 or 12 mind maps for each topic. And that's a really effective way of studying. So for overwhelm, all you can do is focus on one subject and one topic at a time. And if you're going into an exam with 10 or 12 topics you've covered very, very well, then you're in a good place starting off.
On the law of averages, you're going to get a number of those, and they're going to be on the paper. That aspect of being strong or interested in a subject, do you need to spend more time on those subjects or more on ones that you might be a little weaker on?
Well, at this stage, it can be a game of strategy, and we know for a lot of students they get sucked into the maths thing and trying to push on with the honours maths, and there's extra points for that. But a couple of different things, like English was my favourite subject, so I was all over English in school. I loved English, and that's a place I would, even if I wasn't motivated to study, I would start off with a bit of English. Obviously for other subjects you have to push yourself. So if you're not interested, if it's harder for you around a different subject like maths or geography or whatever it is, you might get into a study group, and this is where technology can actually work for you. So lads can get, or girls can get pulled into the WhatsApp group and get pulled away on the study. Well, maybe you create an actual study group in which you can only put up study notes or questions or even your little flashcards, and that's a way you can get technology working for you.
You mentioned issues and the pressures that go along with all of this. What do you say to parents listening today or students to alleviate all these pressures? There's pressure to succeed. There's pressure from your peers. There's, it's coming from all angles, social media, everything.
Yeah, so I mean, there's huge expectations out there now on young people, and millennials today, this is the record levels of stress, anxiety, depression, and that's hard for a lot of older people to understand, but life now is so public. I've a really cool tool that I have a well-being program. I call it Manage Myself, and I simply it's called Stop, Shush, Select. It's a kind of CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy thing. So, and I know what it's like to go into an exam and you're panicking. So the thing to do is to stop. Just actually say to yourself, stop. The second thing to say to yourself is shh. Just that shh, to quieten your mind. And then select is to select a new thought. So you might be saying to yourself, I'm going to fail this, or I'm all over the place, I don't know enough. That thought is actually taking away from you. Whereas if you turn around and you're saying, well, you know what? I'm going to try and get one question right. Actually, I think I can do okay in this exam. You know what? It's all going to be over at 3 o'clock. So just by selecting a new thought, that can actually help the student. And then just with respect to overall pressures today, I suppose young people, we need to equip people more, and it's really to kind of be able to stand back. And this is why I gamify everything. This is why I say to myself, even myself, I feel I'm getting too tight, and where you're getting anxious sometimes by going out for a run or the walk. And this is why doing is so important, getting out of your head. So for some students, they'll be trying to do the 5, 6, 7 hours and cover everything on the exam, just going out and get going for a walk. With respect to parents, talking obviously is the big thing. Hard for some kids because some students don't want to talk to mum or dad, but just letting them know that they're there for them. And the worst thing a parent can do is try to make the student talk to them, the young person. But my dad wouldn't, he might talk to me about politics. So it's talking through something else. And the worst thing mum or dad can do sometimes is bring the subject up at the wrong time. So the best time to talk to your son or daughter could be pizza night on Saturday evening. That's the time to ask, well, how did the exams are going? So it's about picking your times. But certainly for young people today, there's lots of supports out there. But when you're doing your exams for the first time, it's really to kind of be able to stand back from it. And that's why I try to gamify everything. Have a great sense of humour, as my dad would say, laugh twice a day.
Is it tougher today? Are exams tougher? Is life tougher for students? Even when you think of all the technology they have at their fingertips, the connectivity, the support they have for parents in general is very good as well.
The big problem for young people today, and actually I'm reading this fantastic book at the moment, Smarter, Faster, Better, by Charles Duhigg, and he talks about the Marines, and they're finding in the Marines over in the US that young people who are presenting themselves are actually, they're in the worst shape they've ever seen, and it's this thing of not being able to make decisions for themselves. So if you actually think back to when you were 14 or 15, you probably had a job, you worked in a pub. I worked at home for my dad. I used to work in a car wash, and you earned a few bob yourself, and you're able to spend your own money, and that was extremely empowering. So that gave you a little bit of confidence in yourself. For younger people today, all those things have been taken away from them. So even the little job now, there's health and safety. Mum or dad want to bubble wrap them. It's not being able to, go out late at night. And that's taken away their little bit of independence, which in effect is robbing them of drive, direction, determination, all the skills that you need to succeed in the 21st century. And I think the number one skill that someone needs to succeed these days is self-motivation. And the key to self-motivation is empowering someone, giving them the power of choice. That's where it's at. And even I remember in first year I went to school in the centre of Dublin, O'Connell School, coming in from Rush. And in second year I wanted to leave. Why? Because that was an all-boys school and there was girls in the school up the road from me. And my mother said to me, well, Raymond, you've made your choice. You have to stick with it. You're going to stay there till sixth year. And I had to go with it because it was originally my choice. But what a fantastic piece of parenting. So give your son or daughter the power of making their own decisions. Never tell them to go up and study. Say, it's your choice.
Have to leave it there for today. We won't leave it so long till you and I chat again. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure there's a lot in that we talked about that people can pick out of and, put into practice over the coming weeks. Final word, only half a minute less. It is the mocks. The real McCoy is coming.
Yeah, and for any student out there or parents, there's still plenty of time. You've still got 3-4 months to get it into gear, so not to panic. That's the big thing. There's plenty of time, and to try and gamify and enjoy the process as best you can. And remember, guys, day by day, we are raising the game.
If people want to find out more about you and what you do.
Yeah, my Raise the Game program, I go into schools. I also coach young people. So it's www.raylangan, RayLangan.com, raylangan.com.
Ray, till the next time, thanks a million.
Thank you, Gerry.